Nestled deep within the desolate landscape of Northumberland, England, stands Chillingham Castle, a fortress that has withstood centuries of turmoil, haunted by the remnants of an untold history. As you make your way toward this towering monument, the very atmosphere shifts. The air grows thick, laden with the weight of ancient secrets, and the castle's silhouette slowly rises from the mist like a ghost from the past. It is a sight both magnificent and terrifying, a place where history and horror intertwine, where each stone seems to hold the ghosts of 1,000 souls. The approach to the castle feels like a journey through time. As you walk along the overgrown path, the thick trees seem to close in, creating a canopy above that allows only slivers of light to penetrate through. The eerie quiet is unsettling, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves in the wind or the distant call of a lone bird. The path leads you ever closer to the fortress, its jagged outline growing more imposing with each step. It is as though the castle is waiting for you to enter its dark embrace. Chillingham Castle is one of England's most notorious and haunted locations, and as you stand at its base, it's not hard to see why. The structure itself is a Gothic marvel, built from ancient grey stone that seems to absorb the very essence of the surrounding landscape. Over the centuries, the weather has worn the stones down, leaving behind a texture that is rough, uneven, and almost unnatural in its appearance. The ivy that creeps along the walls like a living thing seems to be in constant motion, as if it is trying to reclaim the castle for nature, to hide the stories that dwell within. The ivy, which coats the walls from top to bottom, gives the building a sense of age and mystery, as if it's been forgotten by the world, yet never fully abandoned. At first glance, Chillingham Castle may seem like any other medieval stronghold, a place of defense and power. But take a closer look and you will notice the subtle details that set it apart. The high, arched windows, now cloudy and worn with time, are set in the thick stone walls like dark eyes watching the world go by. They are empty, vacant, but those who dare to get too close swear they have seen ghostly figures lingering in the windows, faint silhouettes that vanish as quickly as they appear. The grand entrance to the castle is flanked by imposing stone columns, worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. The heavy wooden doors, once an imposing barrier to the outside world, stand slightly ajar, as if inviting you in, yet holding you at bay. The doors creak on their hinges when the wind blows, a haunting sound that fills the air with an unshakable sense of dread. The gatehouse, tall and formidable, looms above like a watchful guardian, its stone walls lined with battlements that have seen countless battles over the centuries. As you continue your journey around the perimeter, the courtyard comes into view, an open space that was once bustling with life, but now remains eerily quiet. The cobblestone ground is cracked and uneven, as though the weight of history has caused the earth itself to buckle under the pressure. The air here is still, yet the atmosphere is anything but peaceful. There is a strange heaviness in the air, as if the land itself remembers the horrors that took place within these walls. The faint scent of damp earth mingles with the bitter, metallic tang of age-old bloodshed, seeping into the very stones of the castle. At night, Chillingham Castle takes on a new, more sinister form. The once majestic fortress becomes a haunted spectre, casting long, terrifying shadows across the land. The moonlight, pale and ghostly, filters through the mist that often blankets the castle grounds, giving everything an ethereal glow. The stone walls seem to absorb the light, rendering them darker and more oppressive than before. The faintest rustling of wind can be heard, but there are no leaves to account for it, no branches swaying in the breeze. It is as though the air itself is moving of its own accord, stirred by unseen hands. The courtyard, which seems still during the day, is now a breeding ground for spectral activity. People who have ventured close at night report hearing footsteps in the distance, though no one is around. The wind howls through the cracks in the stone, carrying with it the faint sound of whispers, low, unintelligible murmurs that seem to come from the very walls of the castle itself. Some say they are the voices of the long-dead prisoners. Others claim they are the tortured souls of those who met their end within the castle's dungeons. Local legends speak of shadowy figures seen roaming the castle's perimeter late at night. These apparitions are often described as soldiers from the castle's bloody past, their eyes hollow, their faces twisted in eternal pain. They are said to appear out of the mist, only to disappear before anyone can get close. Yet, despite their fleeting presence, the impression they leave is undeniable. The air grows colder, the atmosphere heavier, and the sense of dread deepens. Chillingham Castle is not just a building, it is a living, breathing monument to the past, a place where history's darkest chapters are never truly forgotten. Every stone, every crack, and every shadow seems to hold the weight of the castle's bloody past. But it is the exterior that first calls to you, beckoning you to uncover its dark secrets. As you stand before the towering gates, you cannot help but feel the eyes of the past upon you, watching, waiting. And if you dare to enter, you may just find that Chillingham Castle's haunted history is more than a mere story, it is a reality, one that might follow you home. As you stand in awe of its exterior, remember this: Chillingham Castle is never truly silent. It speaks through the winds, through the shadows, and through the eerie whispers that drift on the night air. And for those who listen closely, it has stories to tell, stories that will haunt you long after you leave its gates. Dungeon or torture room at Chillingham Castle. As you step deeper into the cold, unforgiving stone corridors of Chillingham Castle, you are greeted by an overwhelming sense of dread. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth, mold, and a faint metallic tang that never quite dissipates, an enduring reminder of the horrors that once transpired in these very halls. The further you venture, the darker it becomes. The dim, flickering light of a few scattered torches provides little comfort, their flames sputtering as if wary of the shadows they cannot pierce. The stone walls feel as if they are closing in on you, the weight of history bearing down with an intensity that is almost suffocating. The dungeon at Chillingham Castle is not like any other. It is not just a room of confinement, it is a place where pain and suffering have been immortalized in the very air itself. As you descend the creaking, time-worn stairs leading to the heart of the dungeon, you can almost hear the echoes of desperate screams that once reverberated through these cold, unforgiving chambers. The dim torchlight casts long, twisted shadows on the rough-hewn stone walls, making it difficult to tell where reality ends and the supernatural begins. The dungeon was once a place of unimaginable torment. Iron maidens, their rusted metal spikes standing tall in the gloom, lined the stone walls. These grotesque devices, designed to stretch and pierce the body, are remnants of a time when cruelty and suffering were the only form of justice. The walls around you are lined with chains, some broken, some still hanging with a grim permanence, their rust-colored stains the only testimony to the suffering they once caused. These chains are not merely objects of history, they feel alive with the anguish of the countless souls who once hung from them, their spirits forever tethered to this forsaken place. In the farthest corner of the dungeon, an old rack still stands, its wooden frame worn with age. The rack was once a device of unimaginable agony designed to stretch its victims beyond their breaking point. The idea was simple: slowly pull the limbs of the accused until their joints tore apart. The echoes of screams, tortured cries, and pleas for mercy seem to resonate in this area more than anywhere else. The air in this corner feels colder, the atmosphere heavier, as if the very fabric of time itself is haunted by the past. The dampness in the dungeon is suffocating, with moisture collecting on the stone floor, which is uneven and slick with years of decay. The coldness of the stones is almost unbearable, and the sound of your footsteps echoes through the silence like the beating of a drum, a constant reminder that you are not alone here. The darkness in the dungeon seems to stretch on endlessly, with corners where the light of the torches fails to reach, hiding secrets that have yet to be discovered. What happened here, in this forsaken place, is not easily forgotten, and the atmosphere is thick with the sense that the dungeon has a memory that refuses to fade with time. As you stand in the center of the dungeon, the temperature drops noticeably. It feels as though the walls themselves are alive, breathing in the cold air, exhaling whispers of the past. The faint sound of dragging chains can be heard in the distance, followed by an eerie silence. Some say that, if you listen closely enough, you can hear the anguished cries of those who suffered in this very room, cries that echo through time itself, trapped within these walls, never able to escape. The presence of ghostly figures is not a mere figment of imagination here. Those who have dared to venture into the dungeon after dark speak of shadows moving independently of the flickering torchlight. Figures in the mist, barely visible to the naked eye, drift between the shadows, as if searching for something or someone. Some say they are the spirits of the condemned, forever lingering in this place of torment, unable to move on. Others claim they are the victims of the horrific torture that once took place here, their souls forever bound to the dungeon's dark history. The mist that clings to the stone floors is not just an effect of the damp air, it feels otherworldly, unnatural. It rises from the ground like an ancient curse, swirling in the corners of the room, its movement too deliberate to be caused by simple draughts. Some visitors to the dungeon have reported the strange sensation of being watched by unseen eyes that pierce through the darkness, that seem to judge you, as though the dungeon itself is aware of your presence and is not pleased by it. It is a feeling that lingers long after you leave, a sensation that follows you even out in the open air, as if the dungeon's grip is far-reaching, its influence endless. But the ghostly figures are not the only things that make the dungeon of Chillingham Castle so terrifying. The history behind the room is one that makes the heart race and the stomach churn. The dungeon was not just a place of imprisonment, it was a place where prisoners were subjected to unspeakable acts of cruelty. Torture was commonplace here, and the methods were as brutal as they were inventive. Whether it was the suffocating embrace of the Iron Maiden, the twisting agony of the rack, or the relentless pull of the chains, the pain inflicted within these walls was more than just physical, it was psychological, leaving scars that never healed. There are stories that some of the victims never truly left the dungeon. Those who were executed or disappeared within these walls left behind more than just their blood, they left a part of their soul, tethered to the dungeon forever. Their suffering lingers in the cold, stagnant air, and their restless spirits wander the corridors, searching for the peace they never found in life. It is not just the past that haunts this place, it is the future as well. The dungeon has a way of pulling people in, of making them question the thin line between the living and the dead. People who visit the dungeon often speak of strange occurrences, objects moving on their own, sudden cold spots that freeze the skin, and inexplicable feelings of dread that settle in the pit of your stomach. It's as though the dungeon is alive, constantly shifting, constantly changing, feeding off the fear of those who enter. Despite its grim history and its unnerving atmosphere, there are those who still visit the dungeon, drawn by the pull of the supernatural, the desire to witness firsthand the horrors that have long been forgotten by the world. But few leave unchanged. The dungeon of Chillingham Castle has a way of lingering with you, of seeping into your thoughts, your dreams, and your very soul. It is a place that will not let you go easily. The chains, the racks, each part of the dungeon is more than just a relic of the past. They are symbols of the pain, the suffering, and the torment that occurred here. They are a testament to the darkness that resides within Chillingham Castle, and a reminder that some places are never truly forgotten, no matter how much time passes. And for those brave enough, or foolish enough, to step inside, the dungeon will leave its mark. A mark that, for better or worse, will never fade. Haunted hallway at Chillingham Castle, opening with a slow, eerie tone. There are places within Chillingham Castle where time feels as though it has come to a halt, where the air is thick with a presence that refuses to leave. The haunted hallway is one such place. A corridor that stretches deep into the heart of the ancient fortress, its very walls heavy with centuries of untold secrets and ghostly whispers. As you step into this hallway, an unsettling chill wraps around you like a cold, unseen hand, urging you to turn back. But something pushes you forward. The hallway, long and narrow, stretches out before you in a maze-like fashion. The stone walls are rough-hewn, weathered by time and the relentless forces of nature, their surfaces cracked and covered in creeping ivy and moss. The texture of the walls is jagged, as though each stone has absorbed the sorrow and suffering of those who once roamed these halls. The air is damp, carrying with it the earthy scent of ancient stone and the faintest trace of something else. A bitter, metallic odor that hangs in the air, as if the walls themselves have become stained with the ghosts of the past. As you move deeper into the hallway, the wooden doors lining the corridor come into view, each one slightly ajar, as if inviting you into the unknown. The doors are old, their wooden surfaces scratched and scarred, bearing the marks of centuries of use and neglect. The faint creaking of the hinges echoes in the silence, a sound that seems to reverberate in the empty space around you, adding to the eerie atmosphere. The doors appear as though they have not been opened in years, their faded paint chipped and worn, but somehow they remain steadfast, standing like silent sentinels guarding the secrets of the castle. The dim light of wall-mounted torches flickers faintly along the hallway, casting long, distorted shadows on the stone floors and walls. The flames of the torches seem to dance and sway in the air, though there is no breeze to stir them. It's as if the torches themselves are struggling to fight against the weight of the darkness that surrounds them. The flickering light creates a sense of disorientation, making it difficult to tell where the shadows end and the walls begin. The darkness feels alive, pressing in on you from all sides, as though it is waiting for you to make the wrong move. The eerie quiet of the hallway is broken only by the faint sounds of footsteps, but not your own. No, these are the soft, echoing steps of something, or someone else. The sound is faint at first, barely audible, but as you continue walking, it grows louder, closer, until it feels as though someone is walking right behind you, just out of view. Yet when you turn to look, there is nothing there. Only the dim glow of the torches and the creeping shadows. The sensation of being followed is inescapable, and the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end as the footsteps continue, growing louder, more persistent. The strangest part of this hallway, however, is not the oppressive silence, nor the mysterious doors. It is the faint apparitions that sometimes appear in the periphery of your vision, shadows moving where no person should be, figures gliding just beyond the reach of the torchlight. At first, you think they are mere tricks of the light, reflections cast by the dancing flames, but as you focus on them, they become clearer. Translucent shapes, barely discernible, yet unmistakably there. These ghostly figures float along the edges of the hallway, as though they are tethered to the very stone itself, forever caught in the liminal space between life and death. These apparitions do not seem to be aware of your presence, nor do they acknowledge you in any way. They are like memories, distant and unreachable, moving without purpose, as though they are lost in their own sorrow. Some of the figures seem to move purposefully, gliding silently from one door to the next, while others appear to drift aimlessly, their forms shimmering in and out of focus, as if they are struggling to maintain their shape. They pass through walls, vanish into corners, and reappear moments later as if mocking the very notion of time. Executives, the ghostly figures are not alone in this space. There is an energy in this hallway, an unseen force that makes the air feel heavy and thick. It is a sensation that presses in on you from all sides, as if the walls themselves are closing in, threatening to swallow you whole. The longer you stand in this hallway, the more the oppressive presence of the past seems to wrap around you like a shroud. Echo a high school, a shroud. The very stones beneath your feet seem to hum with an ancient power, as if the castle itself is alive, its pulse echoing through the halls. The weight of the memories here is almost tangible, and as you move, it becomes clear that this hallway is not just a part of the castle. It is a place of energy, of power, and of things that should not be. As you continue down the corridor, a sense of unease grows, settling in the pit of your stomach. The atmosphere becomes heavier, darker, more suffocating. The shadows seem to grow longer, creeping along the walls, reaching out as though they are trying to claim you. The temperature drops noticeably, and a chill runs through your bones, making you shiver despite your best efforts to remain calm. The faint whispers begin again, barely audible but unmistakable. They are not the sounds of the living, these are the voices of the dead, the souls who once walked these halls, now trapped in this space, eternally bound to the castle. Some say that the whisperers are the voices of those who met their end in the dark corners of the castle, their fate sealed by the cruel hands of history. Others believe the hallway is haunted by the spirits of those who were once imprisoned here, their restless souls still wandering the halls, unable to find peace. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: this hallway is not a place for the living to linger. Those who have dared to walk its length often report feelings of dizziness, nausea, and an overwhelming urge to flee. The hallway has a way of consuming you, of drawing you into its depths, where the boundary between life and death becomes blurred. The longer you stand there, the more you feel the presence of something ancient, something malevolent, watching you from the shadows. There is no escape, no way to outrun the sensation that you are not alone. The apparitions continue to drift in and out of your vision, their movements as fluid and unpredictable as the smoke from the torches. They are here, in this space, and they are watching you. As you near the end of the hallway, the air becomes thick with an almost unbearable tension. The whispers intensify, growing louder and more urgent, as if warning you to turn back before it is too late. The torches flicker and die out, leaving you in complete darkness for a moment, a darkness so complete that it feels as if the castle itself has swallowed the light whole. When the flames reignite, the figures are gone, but the feeling of being watched lingers, heavy in the air. The hallway is quiet once again, but the sense of something unfinished, something unresolved, remains. This hallway, this cursed corridor of Chillingham Castle, is more than just a passageway. It is a place where the living and the dead meet, where time stands still, and where the ghosts of the past refuse to leave. For those who dare to walk its length, it is an experience that will stay with them forever, a chilling reminder of the thin veil between the world of the living and the world of the dead. The ghost of the blue boy at Chillingham Castle. In the deepest corners of Chillingham Castle, where the stone walls stand strong against the ravages of time, there exists a ghostly presence that has terrified visitors for centuries. The spirit of the blue boy. A figure so mysterious, so tragically beautiful, that his very name has become synonymous with the haunting of this ancient fortress. His apparition, glowing faintly in the dark, is a reminder of a past that refuses to stay buried, of a life lost too soon, and a spirit bound forever to the castle's cold embrace. The room where the blue boy is said to appear is one of the most chilling in the castle. The walls are made of dark, weathered stone, worn smooth by the passage of time. The air is thick with the weight of history, carrying the scent of mildew and age. The dim light from the flickering torches mounted on the stone walls barely reaches into the corners of the room, casting long, twisted shadows that seem to stretch and contort as if alive. The silence in the room is almost palpable, broken only by the distant sounds of creaking floorboards and the occasional echo of a door opening somewhere far away. At the center of this room stands an old four-poster bed, its dark wood frame covered with the remnants of faded, tattered curtains. The bed looks as though it hasn't been slept in for centuries, its linens untouched by time, yet carrying an undeniable sense of neglect. The mattress is sunk in the middle, as if someone once lay there for a long time, but who? No one knows. It's as if the room itself is caught in a timeless pause, forever suspended between past and present. It is here, in the shadowed recesses of the room, that the blue boy appears. He is not a solid figure. He is faint, ethereal, barely there, as though he is made of the mist and shadows that linger in the air. His form glows with a soft, otherworldly blue light, an eerie illumination that seems to emanate from within him, casting a faint glow on the stone walls around him. His figure is translucent, barely visible to the naked eye, but unmistakable once seen, his face pale and sad, his eyes wide, with an eternal sorrow that tugs at the heart. His appearance is not sudden, but rather gradual, as if he is slowly materializing from the very walls themselves, drawn from the long-buried memories of the castle. The faint light that surrounds him flickers like the flame of a dying candle, casting soft, pale blue hues over the room. It's a haunting light, the kind that makes shadows grow long and stretch unnaturally across the floor, a glow that seems to shift and pulse with a life of its own. As he moves, his figure glides silently through the room, his feet never touching the ground. The sound of his movements is like the whisper of a breeze, barely audible, but the air grows colder in his way. It's as if the very temperature of the room drops when he appears, leaving a chill that sinks deep into your bones. The room is filled with a sense of heaviness, as though the boy's sorrow has infected the very fabric of the space around him. Around him, a mist begins to form, swirling gently in the air like a fog. The mist is faint at first, but it quickly grows thicker, wrapping around his form in a cloud of soft, translucent vapor. The mist curls around the base of the four-poster bed, drifting along the floor in gentle spirals, as if searching for something or someone. The air grows dense, making it harder to breathe, as though the very atmosphere is thickening with the weight of his presence. The mist moves with a life of its own, shifting and swirling in delicate patterns, never staying in one place for long, just as the blue boy never seems to stay still. Despite the ethereal nature of his form, there is something intensely human about him. His face, though pale and translucent, shows the unmistakable signs of youth. His features delicate, his lips slightly parted in what might have been a silent cry. His eyes, wide and haunted, seem to follow you as you move, a look of pleading sadness in them. The blue boy's expression is one of endless sorrow, a tragic yearning for something that is forever out of reach, as if he is trapped between the realms of the living and the dead, unable to move on. As he floats through the room, the blue boy often comes to a stop at the foot of the four-poster bed, as if he is drawn to it, bound to it even. It is said that he gazes at the bed with an expression of longing, his gaze fixated on the empty space as if awaiting someone, or perhaps something. His hands, pale and trembling, are often seen reaching out, though they never seem to make contact with anything. They hover just above the surface of the bed, as though he is trying to touch a world that no longer exists for him. The ghostly presence of the blue boy is more than just a spectral figure. It is an embodiment of sorrow and loss. The whispers that follow his apparition are faint, but they carry with them a sense of anguish. A child's desperate cry, a voice too faint to make out, but filled with the unmistakable plea for comfort. Some say the boy died tragically in this room, a child whose life was stolen away before it even had the chance to truly begin. Others believe that he is the spirit of a young servant, whose death was the result of a terrible accident or act of cruelty. No one truly knows the origins of the blue boy, and perhaps it is that very mystery that gives his ghost such an air of sadness. The atmosphere around him is thick with the weight of the past, and as he moves through the room, there is a sense that time itself bends and warps, stretching backward into the tragic days when the boy lived and died. Some visitors who have ventured into the room claim to have felt his presence in the form of an overwhelming sadness that presses down on their hearts, making it difficult to breathe or think clearly. It is as if the blue boy's grief has seeped into the very walls of the castle, leaving an indelible mark on the space he once inhabited. Others have reported hearing strange sounds when the blue boy appears. Soft whispers that seem to come from nowhere. Low, mournful sounds that seem to emanate from the very walls, as though the castle itself is mourning his loss. The faint sound of a child's laugh, or the sound of footsteps echoing in the distance, can sometimes be heard just before he materializes. These sounds, however, are always fleeting, vanishing as quickly as they appear, leaving only the lingering presence of the boy's ghostly form. For those who encounter the blue boy, the experience is often a deeply unsettling one. There is something so profoundly sad about him, something so tragically human, that it feels almost wrong to witness. Yet his presence is undeniable. He remains, lingering in the shadows, a reminder of the past, and the countless souls who still walk the halls of Chillingham Castle. His story, though untold, remains one of the most haunting within the castle's walls. Some believe that the blue boy's spirit is not bound to the room, but to the castle itself, forever wandering the halls, unable to find peace. Others say that his presence is a warning, a symbol of the inescapable nature of the past and the unresolved tragedies that linger in the dark corners of this ancient place. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: the Blue Boy will continue to haunt Chillingham Castle, his sad, glowing form appearing to those unlucky enough to encounter him, a silent sentinel of sorrow and loss. The Great Hall of Chillingham Castle. Chillingham Castle, steeped in centuries of history, is a place where the past refuses to die. Every stone, every beam, and every room holds within it the echoes of those who lived, loved, and died in this ancient fortress. But perhaps none of these echoes is more pronounced than within the walls of the Great Hall. This is a room of power and mystery, a place that has seen many gatherings, but also witnessed the unspoken, the unseen, and the unexplainable. The Great Hall of Chillingham Castle is a vast, imposing room. Its immense size makes it feel even colder, even more oppressive. The stone walls rise high, their surfaces rough-hewn, showing the marks of time and neglect. The grand windows, once magnificent, are now thick with grime, casting only faint rays of light through the dust-laden air. The ceiling above is arched and vaulted, giving the room a sense of height that almost feels suffocating. Old beams stretched across the expanse of the hall, their wood darkened with age, their very presence a silent witness to centuries of history. As you step into the Great Hall, the first thing that strikes you is the overwhelming coldness. It is not just a drop in temperature, it is a bite, a chill that seeps into your bones and makes your breath form in the air in cold clouds. The temperature here never seems to match the outside world, as if the room has been untouched by time, locked in an eternal winter. The stone floors beneath your feet are smooth, worn down by generations of footsteps, but they are unyielding, cold, and unfriendly. At the center of the room lies an enormous wooden table, aged and worn by centuries of use. Its surface is scarred, dark with time, and polished only by the passage of innumerable hands that have touched it. The table is long enough to seat dozens, though now only a few faintly visible figures remain. The wood groans in places, as though it remembers the weight of history it has carried. The lords and ladies who sat here for banquets, the knights and soldiers who discussed strategy, and the prisoners who might have sat in fear, waiting for their fate to be decided. Up and on the table, remnants of forgotten times remain. A few tarnished goblets, their surfaces dulled by time, and the remains of what might once have been silver plates or candlesticks, their beauty hidden beneath layers of dust. What once was vibrant and regal now stands as a silent testament to what has passed. On the walls surrounding the Great Hall, ancient tapestries hang in solemn silence, their once vibrant colors now faded to pale, ghostly hues. Each tapestry tells a story. A battle fought long ago, a noble family's history, the rise and fall of empires. They hang like silent watchers, their figures now faint, mere outlines of their former glory. The weavings of these tapestries are intricate, beautiful even in their decay, but there is something unsettling about them. Perhaps it is the way their faces seem to watch you as you walk past, or the fact that they look almost too alive, too real in the dim, flickering candlelight. Speaking of candlelight, this is the only source of illumination within the Great Hall. The light from candles mounted on the walls and placed on the table flickers weakly in the gloom, casting long, dancing shadows that crawl across the floor and walls. The flames seem to dance and waver as if they are struggling against an invisible wind, despite the air in the room being still. Their pale light throws the faces in the tapestries into sharp relief, and in the quiet darkness, it feels as though they are alive, watching, waiting. As your eyes adjust to the darkness, you begin to see the ghostly figures that haunt the room. They are not immediately visible, but as the candlelight flickers, their faint images begin to appear, transparent, ethereal, and almost insubstantial. At first they seem like shadows or the effect of the dim lighting, but upon closer inspection you realize that these are spirits, spectral figures, wandering the great hall as if they were still alive. Their faces are pale and elongated, their eyes wide and haunted, reflecting the same pain and loss that the room itself seems to carry. The figures are often seen at the edges of your vision, standing in the doorways, their features half hidden by the shadows. Sometimes you might catch a glimpse of their hands, pale, translucent hands, reaching out from the darkness as though trying to make contact with the world of the living. They move in silence, gliding effortlessly through the room, their forms flickering in and out of existence, as though they are not fully bound by the same laws of time and space that govern the living. In the far corner of the great hall, you see an old mirror, its surface tarnished with age. It is large, its frame made of dark wood, intricately carved with twisted, delicate patterns. The mirror once shone with pride, reflecting the opulence of the room and its occupants, but now it is a gateway to something else. The glass is cloudy, streaked with decades of dust, but there is still something unsettling about it. The candlelight flickers upon its surface, casting an eerie glow that seems to make the reflection within even more distorted. Except for the three who hold the candle and stand watching, the room glows with a different pink than the natural redness of the candle as the cycle repeats itself. It is in this mirror that the true horror of the great hall is revealed. As you look into it, you begin to notice faint figures reflected in the glass. At first, they seem like mere distortions of the shadows, but then, as the candlelight flickers, the reflections grow clearer. Ghostly figures, the same spirits you saw earlier, now moving through the mirror as though they are part of it. The mirror doesn't just reflect the present, but the past, and the figures you see are not standing beside you. They are lost, trapped in time, forever part of the great hall's haunted history. At the next talk, some say that these figures are the restless spirits of those who once lived within the castle, their souls forever trapped within the great hall. Others believe they are the lost souls of guests and visitors who were drawn to the castle only to meet their untimely end. Either way, these reflections in the mirror are unsettling, a reminder that the past is never truly gone, that it is always there watching, waiting for the living to notice. As you stand in the room, you begin to feel the weight of the history surrounding you. The air grows heavier, the very walls of the great hall seem to close in, suffocating you. The flickering light from the candles casts everything in a strange, otherworldly glow. And the feeling that you are not alone intensifies. The shadows grow longer, stretching across the floor, climbing up the walls until it seems as though the entire room is alive, breathing, watching, waiting. The ghostly figures in the mirror are not the only ones in the room. Sometimes, in the stillness of the night, you might hear faint footsteps echoing in the distance. Slow, deliberate steps, as though someone is walking through the hall. But when you turn to look, there is no one there. The only sound is the soft rustle of the tapestries, the flicker of the candlelight, and the steady pulse of the darkness that seems to press in on you from all sides. In this room, the boundary between the living and the dead is thin. The great hall is a place of power, where the past and the present collide, and the spirits of the castle's long-forgotten inhabitants continue to wander, trapped in a world of memories and shadows. If you linger long enough, you might begin to hear their voices, soft whispers, distant murmurs, as though they are calling out to you from across the centuries, seeking to make contact, to remind you that they are still here, watching, waiting. Ha ha!